You are listening to That's Life, a One Love Media production.
Before we start this episode, I need to vent for a moment. So, when I was doing research for today's episode, I decided that I was going to reach out to the organizations that, I guess you would say, own the collective rights, so to speak, of Dr. Angelou's work, or the copyrights. Well, I told them what I was doing. I even sent them a copy of the script, right? I was trying to get permission to do it legally, so that way there wasn't any point where anybody could look back and say he cut corners on this when he should have never cut corners on somebody like Dr. Angelou. Anyways, so I email, tell them what I'm doing, and they told me that the specific work of Maya Angelou's that I was looking for was actually controlled by her publisher. Told me I needed to get a hold of her publisher. Okay, fine. I email the publisher. They tell me that it's going to be about 4 weeks before they can process my request. That's fine. You know, I wasn't mad at them because of the long wait. I wasn't mad at all, actually. And that is what upsets me the most about this. Anyways, so I email the first representative back. I let her know, hey, thank you so much for getting me in the right direction for who I needed to speak with. Unfortunately, it's going to take them 4 weeks to process my request. I'm recording this Sunday, but if I ever need anything in the future, I will definitely be sure to use you guys, right? So she responds back with an attitude, telling me that certain things that she had said in her first email that she in fact did not say, that maybe I needed to go back and reread because I was wrong. Spoiler alert, the text didn't change. She then told me that if I wanted help with using her voice to read a part of my show opener, that they could do that. And so I responded back with the same professionalism and once again thanked her for her effort. But because the show was getting recorded on Sunday today, and this is Thursday, that I didn't want to give them, or, have the hassle of them trying to rush something, which you're using AI on a dead woman's voice. It is not that hard. She then proceeds to email me back 10 minutes later, blaming me for, quote-unquote, waiting until the last minute to submit a request, and that they just didn't have the time. And maybe if I wanted to use something of hers, that I should have submitted a request sooner. Well, we all know what I'm not good at. And that is dealing with hostile, overall, miserable people, right? So, I read her email, and I went to go respond, and I was like, no, you don't need to respond right off. I waited 30 seconds, don't worry. It took me a minute to actually get the reply message open and everything. But I will have you know, I did respond back with professionalism, because I am now going to read you the email that I sent back to her. I said, "It's fine. I will use my own voice, because it's about the meaning of her words and not who has creative control over what. I'm sure if Dr. Angelou were still living, she would be dismayed at the closed-off approach and unwillingness to help new generations find her words. You say I didn't give enough time. I get that. I know I didn't. I told you I didn't. But I also work in music and production. I can use AI to produce her voice and have her read my entire show script if I wanted to, and I could get that done within hours. I will not do that, however, because I respect her, not the organization that you are with. I will, however, use these emails to bring comparisons to who Dr. Angelou was versus how her legacy is being handled. So, I guess I did get something out of nothing. Dr. Angelou fought for freedom and freedom of expression. You are keeping the bird caged. I hope you do better with future prospects. I definitely wasn't going to keep that out of the episode. But, anyways, let's go ahead and start this thing.
We got a big broadcast to do here.
Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go.
When it looks like the sun will not shine anymore, she sang to the standing, applauding crowd. God put a rainbow in the clouds. Let me paint the picture for you. It's October 2003 in Albion, Michigan. It was cold. It had been raining all day. And that set Miss Maya Angelou's speech to 2,600 people, myself included, back a couple of hours. The choir that I was in sang Three Little Birds as she gracefully made her way across the stage. I don't remember the words to the speech, but I remember how she carried herself and how when she spoke, it would come out with such passion and fire. She was dignified but warm, commanding yet gentle. And after she was done, after the applause faded and she walked off stage, she did what most people of her status wouldn't do. She gathered the choir around and said to us all, "Just remember, white, black, brown, or yellow, no matter how bad the situation is, it doesn't matter, because you are all God's little birds. Never stop singing for Him. You all can achieve anything in your minds because you are all beautiful children of God." At 13, I didn't fully understand the weight of her words. But sitting here now, letting it all flood back, I couldn't be happier than to dedicate this episode to the one, the only, Dr. Maya Angelou. So, today, let's talk about a question she asked the world through her poetry. Do you know why the caged bird sings? It's a question that still echoes, because even though decades have passed since she first penned those words, the world still holds cages. There are still voices singing through those bars. But the bigger question is, what are we doing to free those caged birds? Let's talk about it. Segment 1. The Caged Bird. What it meant then, and what it means now. Maya Angelou's poem, Caged Bird, is about freedom. Both longing for and the oppression that makes it so necessary. She describes two birds. One free to soar, to claim the sky as its own, and another trapped in a cage, wings clipped, singing out because that's all it has left. It's not subtle. The caged bird represents Black Americans who have fought against systemic racism, oppression, and discrimination. The free bird? Nah, not that 9-minute long song you drunkenly yell at me to play at midnight whenever I DJ. But the free bird is privilege. The people who have the luxury of moving through the world without fear. And here's the thing. Maya didn't write those words in a vacuum. She lived them. That's right. Born in 1928, she came of age in a world that told her, as a Black woman, that she was less than, that her voice didn't matter, that her place was dictated by laws and customs designed to keep her caged. And yet, she sang. She sang through poetry, through activism, through her work alongside Dr. King and Malcolm X, through the way she refused to be silenced no matter how many people tried to shut her down. And that's the power of the Caged Bird song. It's not just about survival. It's about resistance. It's about hope. It's about refusing to let oppression have the final word. But let's be real. Has the cage really been broken open? Because here we are in 2025, and we're still watching politicians strip rights away from marginalized communities. We're still watching systemic racism play out in housing, education, healthcare, and the justice system. We have a sitting president who outright dismisses the identity of millions by declaring that there are only two genders, as if science, human experience, and basic decency don't exist. So yeah, I guess the caged bird is still singing. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we listening? Segment 2. The role of faith. What does God say about the caged bird? If we're going to talk about the caged bird, we have to talk about faith. Because a lot of people, especially those in power, love to quote the Bible when it suits them. But they stay real quiet when Scripture demands justice. So, what does God say about this caged bird? Well, let's start with Isaiah chapter 1, verse 17. Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. That doesn't sound like silence to me. That sounds like action. That sounds like faith in motion. If you didn't like that, how about Luke chapter 4, verse 18, when Jesus stands up in the synagogue and says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, and to set the oppressed free." Freedom, justice, liberation. That is the message of Jesus. Not condemnation, not cruelty, and definitely not the kind of oppression disguised as morality that we see in so many churches today. So, when people say faith and justice don't mix, they're not reading the same Bible I am, because the God I serve has always been in the business of breaking cages. Segment 3. What can we do? Steps towards change. So, what do we do with all of this? Because it's not enough to just see the cage. It's not enough to just hear the song. If we truly believe in justice, in love, in the radical message of Jesus, then we have to be about action. Confused on where to start? Well, good thing you're here. I got some tips for you. Number 1, educate yourself. If you don't understand systemic racism, oppression, or the struggles of marginalized communities, it's time to listen. It's 2025. Read books, follow activists, learn the history they don't teach you in school. Number 2, use your voice. Speak up in your circles. Challenge harmful narratives. If someone makes a racist or a transphobic joke, don't let it slide. If a church preaches exclusion instead of love, call it out. Silence is complicity. Number 3, vote like lives depend on it. Let me say that again. Vote like lives depend on it. I didn't say vote like black lives depend on it. I didn't say vote like white. No race at all. Vote like lives depend on it. Because they do. Policies create cages. Laws determine who gets freedom and who doesn't. If you're not voting with justice in mind, you're missing the point. Number 4, support organizations doing the work. There are countless groups fighting for racial justice, the LGBTQIA plus rights, and systemic change. What you need to do is donate, volunteer, show up. I'm going to say that one more time, just in case you missed it. Donate, volunteer, show up. And number 5, lead with love. Jesus didn't move through the world with hate. He didn't build walls, he tore them down. If your faith doesn't lead you towards love, then it's not faith, it's fear. And fear has no place in the kingdom of God. Well, my fellow lifers, it has come to that point in the show where we get to my closing thoughts. Maya Angelou once said, "I know why the caged bird sings, ah, me, when his wings are bruised and his bosom sore, when he beats his bars and would be free." The world is still full of caged birds. But here's the good news. Cages don't last forever. They can be broken. Systems can be changed. And every time we raise our voices, every time we stand for justice, every time we choose love over hate, we bend those bars just a little more. So let's keep singing. But let's also start unlocking some cages. Because that's life. Join us next week as we dive into the weight of words, how what we say shapes the world. Until next time, do you, but do it with love and affection. I'm Kyle Fields, and that's life.